I'm Andy Miocza and you are watching AnewZ. Here are the headlines. A federal appeals court temporarily reinstates Donald Trump's tariffs a day after they were blocked by a U.S. trade court. White House says Israel agreed to a Gaza ceasefire proposal. Hamas says it's reviewing the plan. Azerbaijan elected to the executive board of the UN Habitat Program at the body's assembly in Nairobi. Thank you for tuning in. A federal appeals court temporarily reinstated the most sweeping of Donald Trump's tariffs a day after a U.S. trade court ruled that the president had exceeded his authority in imposing the duties and ordered an immediate block on them.
A federal appeals court temporarily reinstated the most sweeping of U.S. President Donald Trump's tariffs on Thursday. This came just one day after a U.S. trade court ruled that the president had overstepped his authority and ordered an immediate halt to the tax hikes. The U.S. Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit in Washington, D.C. said it was pausing the lower court's ruling while it considers the government's appeal. It gave the plaintiffs until the 5th of June to respond, and the administration must file its reply by the 9th of June. White House trade advisor Peter Navarro insists the administration is prepared to act on multiple fronts if needed. For now, the tariffs remain in place.
There's no plan B, it's plan A, okay? Plan A encompasses all strategic options, and when we move forward, we had a full view of what the battlefield looks like. We are not naive about rogue justices in the judiciary.
Thank you very much.
The trade court had earlier ruled that Trump went beyond his powers by using emergency law to impose broad tariffs, stating that only Congress has the authority to set duties. Despite the ruling, the White House is standing its ground. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt called the decision judicial overreach and said the Supreme Court must back the president. Trump also warned that judgment, if upheld, would weaken presidential power. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said trade negotiations are continuing, with no signs that America's trading partners are backing away.
We have not seen any of that in terms of our trading partners. They are coming to us in good faith and trying to complete the deals before the 90-day pause ends. So we've seen no change in their attitude in the past 48 hours. As a matter of fact, I have a very large Japanese delegation coming to my office first thing tomorrow morning.
White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett also highlighted progress continues on several trade deals despite the court's ruling.
I saw last week, at the end of the week, 3 that were basically ready for the president's decision. And I don't know if people have had that conversation with him yet, but yes, there are many, many deals coming, and there were 3 that are basically look like they're done.
Trump's tariff strategy has shaken financial markets for months. On Thursday, U.S. stocks closed slightly higher as investors reacted to both the court news and corporate earnings. The S&P 500, NASDAQ and Dow all posted modest gains. Analysts say uncertainty remains. With the Court of Appeals now reviewing the case, both sides are preparing to make their arguments. For now, Trump's tariffs stay in place. U.S. stocks ended slightly higher on Thursday, while investors digested the late afternoon court ruling.
As legal battles over Donald Trump's global tariff impositions continue, the effect of Washington's trade policies is best felt at the port of Los Angeles, the busiest port in the country. The number of ships has dropped sharply due to high tariffs on Chinese goods and legal uncertainty, according to port officials.
The head of the busiest port in the United States, the Port of Los Angeles, says that uncertainty among importers is increasing. The reason? President Donald Trump's tariffs on Chinese goods and the ongoing legal disputes surrounding them. According to the director of the port, Jean Soroka, says this situation is negatively affecting preparations for the holiday season. It's after the U.S. Court of International Trade tried to block the tariffs this week. However, the Federal Appeals Court has temporarily reinstated them. The port's director says that imports of goods for the back-to-school period and the holiday season have decreased. In May, cargo volume dropped significantly compared to the same period last year, with some weeks seeing a 30% decline. 10 vessel arrivals scheduled for June have been cancelled, 5 of which were planned for the first week of the month. The port of Los Angeles is a key entry point for goods from China, and major companies such as Walmart and Ford rely on it. Last month, Trump imposed a 145% tariff on Chinese goods, halting many shipments to the US. Due to shipping delays, the impact on cargo volume was felt 2 to 3 weeks later. Even though the US and China agreed earlier this month to temporarily reduce tariffs to 30%, the situation remains unstable. The Federal Appeals Court says the plaintiffs in the legal challenge can respond by the 5th of June and the Trump administration by the 9th of June, suggesting that uncertainty will likely continue in the coming days.
The White House says Israel has accepted a US-backed 60-day Gaza ceasefire plan. Israel is yet to officially comment, while Hamas says they are reviewing the proposal and that the plan does not meet their demands. The deal calls for the release of 28 Israeli hostages in exchange for 1,236 Palestinian prisoners and the remains of 180 dead Palestinians. The plan also stipulates that Hamas release the last 30 of the 58 remaining hostages once a permanent ceasefire has been arranged. Hamas says the plan lacks commitments to end the war, withdraw troops, and unblock aid. Israel insists that Hamas must disarm and release hostages before peace can be achieved.
I can confirm that Special Envoy Witkoff and the president submitted a ceasefire proposal to Hamas that Israel backed and supported. Israel signed off on this proposal before it was sent to Hamas. I can also confirm that those discussions are continuing, and we hope that a ceasefire in Gaza will take place so we can return all of the hostages home, and that's been a priority from this administration from the beginning. I won't comment further as we are in the midst of this right now.
So to be clear, you don't know if Hamas has accepted it yet?
Not to my knowledge, but certainly if that becomes the case and this ceasefire goes into effect, you'll hear it directly from myself, the president, or Special Envoy Witkoff.
The U.S. has told the United Nations Security Council that its ceasefire plan for Ukraine is Russia's best possible deal and urges Moscow to accept it. The U.S. warned that if Russia continues the war, Washington may step back from negotiations and consider more sanctions. The American proposal calls for an immediate, unconditional 30-day ceasefire that Kyiv had earlier accepted. The White House says U.S. President Donald Trump encourages the direct Russia-Ukraine talks in Istanbul.
And the president has been clear from the very beginning of this conflict that he wants to see this conflict solved on the negotiating table, not on the battlefield. And he's told that to both leaders, again, both publicly and privately. So hopefully next week it will move the ball forward in this.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia has not delivered a promised memorandum outlining a potential ceasefire deal. Despite assurances after Russian President Vladimir Putin's call with U.S. President Donald Trump on May 19th, Ukraine, its allies, and mediator Turkey say they have not received the document. Kyiv says it submitted its proposal earlier this week and urged Moscow to present its version before the next proposed meeting on Monday in Istanbul. Zelensky says Moscow is stalling to undermine the process and avoid accountability.
Even the so-called memorandum they promised and seemingly prepared for more than a week has still not been seen by anyone. Ukraine didn't get it. Our partners didn't get it. Even Turkey, which was hosting the first meeting, didn't get the new agenda. Despite promises to the contrary, and first of all promises to the United States of America, to President Trump. Another Russian deceit.
Ahead of the proposed second round of direct Moscow-Kyiv peace negotiations in Istanbul, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan has been shuttling between the two capitals, aiming to lay the groundwork for the talks.
Turkey is actively working to mediate peace between Russia and Ukraine. On a visit to Kyiv, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan expressed hope that the two sides will make significant progress on technical issues during their next round of talks, potentially paving the way for a leaders' summit. He said Ankara would like to host the summit with both Turkish and US presidents present. The Istanbul talks on May 16th, which marked the first direct contact between Moscow and Kyiv in 3 years, were described by Fidan as a new beginning. He believes further negotiations are possible.
İstanbul'da 16 Mayıs'ta gerçekleştirilen görüşmeler diplomatik çözüm arayışlarına.
The talks held in Istanbul on the 16th of May added a new dimension to the search for a diplomatic solution. Expectations for a ceasefire and peace have increased. We consider the Istanbul talks as a new beginning. The rapid completion of the prisoner swap agreement reached in Istanbul has proven that negotiations can yield concrete results. We want the momentum gained in Istanbul to continue.
However, Ukraine remains cautious. Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha stated that Kyiv is still waiting to receive a formal document outlining Russia's peace proposals before deciding whether to attend the next meeting, scheduled for June 2nd in Istanbul. Sybiha did not clarify what steps Ukraine would take if the document is not received.
We are interested in these meetings continuing because we want to end this war this year, and we are interested in establishing a ceasefire, whether it is for 30 days, or for 50 days, or for 100 days. Ukraine is open to discussing this directly with Russia. We confirmed this during the last meeting of our delegations with the Russian side.
The Kremlin has confirmed its negotiators will travel to Istanbul and be ready for talks on Monday. A list of conditions for a potential ceasefire is expected to be on the table.
Joining us from Chicago to talk on the latest in the Russia-Ukraine war is Alec Kasman of Protect Ukraine Now. Welcome, Alec. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, ahead of the possible second round of Istanbul talks, the Russians haven't sent their document yet. Kyiv has done so. How much can be accomplished here if Moscow's views on a potential ceasefire are not known beforehand?
As we discussed a number of times on your show, all these negotiations are not going to be in good faith and unlikely to even happen because Russia's demands are unreasonable. And until Ukraine is in a position of strength to stand its ground, there will not be any results to any peace talks. Yes, Russia didn't provide their demands, but we know what they are. They demand the territory, the 5 regions of Ukraine, but they also most importantly want to seize all assistance from west to Ukraine. They want to halt, so to speak, NATO expansion east. They want to withdraw NATO to withdraw their infrastructure from Eastern Europe. None of those conditions are acceptable by NATO or Ukraine. So again, there will be no results as far as I can tell.
Well, as you've mentioned, some of those requests are public knowledge, even though Kremlin said it will not discuss its memorandum publicly. Among them is an ask for a written pledge from Western leaders not to enlarge NATO further to the east. Do you think this is just a maximalistic request for the sake of negotiations, or maybe a red line for Moscow? And if so, do you think that NATO would even consider ending its open door policy?
Well, number one, we need to consider that it's not NATO that is expanding east. That's former Soviet bloc countries are begging to join NATO because they need protection from Russia. So it's other way around. For Russians, this is an obstacle on their quest to expand west and consume more territories. So obviously they are objecting NATO countries helping their would-be victims. There's a clear conflict here, and there's no solution to a desire of an aggressive regime to continue their quest of consuming more territory.
Well, as the war rages on, Kyiv and its allies are still pushing for the U.S. proposed 30-day ceasefire. How realistic is it to expect a truce following not maybe this round, but some round in the near future of the Istanbul talks? And what would you say that Moscow would ask in return?
I believe the demands of Moscow are already quite known. We talked about it. Again, they're going to request territory they already control, probably with a bonus. They would ask for more. They're going to ask to stop arming Ukraine, and they will request Ukraine to disarm. They will be also demanding that NATO withdraws from other Eastern Europe countries. So again, I don't believe a truce is reasonable, not reasonable, but realistic at this point. I don't think demands that Moscow puts out are consistent with what Ukraine or NATO countries or the United States can accept.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights.
Thank you for having me.
In other news, Western and Central Canada are battling a growing wildfire emergency. 2 provinces have already declared a state of emergency as thousands were forced to flee their homes.
Canada's Saskatchewan province has declared a state of emergency on Thursday, as the province faces a critical wildfire threat. According to Premier Scott Moe, there are currently 17 active wildfires, with 15 communities already evacuated.
It's a very serious situation that we're faced with in Saskatchewan. We do need some rainfall. We need that sooner rather than later. And in light of that not being in the forecast, we most certainly are putting in place every measure possible to prepare our province, prepare our communities, and prepare those that live in our northern communities that are threatened by these wildfires in the days ahead.
On Wednesday, the neighbouring province of Manitoba also declared a state of emergency, urging thousands of residents in northern and eastern regions to evacuate their homes as wildfires spread rapidly. Nationwide, more than 166 wildfires are currently active, with 84 classified as out of control, according to the Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre. The most severe fires are concentrated in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Alberta, Ontario, and British Columbia. In response, the Canadian Armed Forces have been deployed to Manitoba to assist with evacuation and firefighting operations. As smoke from the fires continues to drift south, officials warn of worsening air quality in parts of the United States. Emergency crews remain on high alert as the situation evolves under persistently dry and windy conditions.
A glacier has collapsed in southern Switzerland, burying most of the village of Blatten. 1 person remains missing as officials have paused the search due to dangerous conditions.
The search for a missing man in the Swiss village of Blatten has been suspended after a massive flow of ice, rock and mud collapsed from the Birch Glacier on Wednesday, burying much of the settlement. Authorities say unstable debris mounds and the risk of further rockfalls have made it too dangerous for rescue teams to continue working on the ground. Blatten's 300 residents had already been evacuated from their homes earlier in May, when part of the mountain above showed signs of instability. But the landslide that followed covered nearly the entire area. Some of the few buildings left standing were later flooded as water from a blocked river began to rise. The collapse left a visible scar down the Klein's Nesthorn mountain. The River Lonza, which flows through the area, has been clogged with debris nearly 2 kilometres wide, causing a lake to form. Officials report that the water level has been rising by up to 80 centimetres per hour, driven by both the river blockage and ongoing glacial melt. The army has deployed personnel and equipment, including helicopters and water pumps, while livestock is being airlifted out of nearby farms. Residents in neighbouring villages such as Gampel and Stieg have been told to prepare for potential evacuation if conditions worsen. Scientists monitoring the Alps say this type of event aligns with ongoing changes in the region. Glaciers are melting faster and permafrost, which helps bind mountain rock, is thawing. That combination is making slopes more unstable, especially in summer months. While experts caution against drawing conclusions too quickly, many say climate change is contributing to the increase in such high-altitude hazards. Swiss authorities are already considering further protective measures as the warming trend continues.
For sure, whether climate change was the main driver of this event, because we would need to know for certain whether this event would have happened in a reality that doesn't have any climate change, and we don't have that parallel reality, really. And what we know is that climate change at high elevations is not favorable for rock slope stability. So with increasing temperatures, more water available through ice and snow melt, maybe precipitation falling even high elevations more often as rain than as snow. So those are factors that are not beneficial to mountain stability.
The Swiss president is expected to visit the site soon. Local leaders have pledged support for displaced residents, but with much of the village now buried or flooded, it's unclear when or if people will be able to return.
Azerbaijan has been elected a member of the UN Habitat Programme's Executive Board for the next 4 years at the body's assembly in Nairobi. The board plays a central role in guiding UN Habitat's work on sustainable urban development. Azerbaijan's involvement with the agency has grown since hosting the World Habitat Day in 2023. The country is also preparing to host the UN World Urban Forum in 2026. Baku and Ankara are in talks on a potential free trade agreement, according to Azerbaijan's First Deputy Economy Minister Elnur Aliyev. Both sides are assessing its economic impact, and the proposed deal may cover goods from Azerbaijan's liberated territories. Turkey is Azerbaijan's second largest trade partner, with trade reaching $6.1 billion last year and $2 billion so far this year. Talks also aim to expand the list of goods under the current trade deal. The EU unveiled a new Black Sea strategy that will allow the region to better transport heavy military gear and envisions the establishment of a maritime security hub. The policy also covers regional connectivity with non-EU states. Nini Nikolashvili has more in Tbilisi.
The European Union has unveiled a new strategy for the Black Sea region, the one that directly concerns Georgia, both as a coastal state and as a crucial link between East and West. With security and sustainable development at its core, the plan reflects Brussels' sharpened geopolitical focus following Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. The EU's new strategy underlines deeper cooperation with 6 key partners, including Georgia, Moldova, Ukraine, Turkey, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. For Tbilisi, this is a clear opportunity to reaffirm its European path and to strengthen its role as a reliable partner as new corridors of transport, energy, and digital infrastructure take shape across the South Caucasus. Central to the strategy is the creation of a maritime security hub integrating data from the EU and Black Sea partners. This is a move with clear implications for Georgia's port cities, where security and trade interests now go hand in hand. But beyond the security, the project also offers economic benefits. With EU's Global Gateway initiative in play, the investments are expected to flow into the connectivity projects, potentially linking Georgian, Azerbaijani, and Central Asian networks more tightly with European markets. Brussels insists that strategy is not just a reaction to Russia's aggression, but long-term shift policy. Still, time is telling. As Russia's actions continue to destabilize the Black Sea, the EU is moving to assert a more unified presence, the one that supports the rule of law, green development, and regional resilience. For Tbilisi and its partners, this would be a new leverage, but also new responsibilities of shaping the future of the region, where peace and stability are increasingly interlinked. This is Nini Nicolashvili reporting from Tbilisi, AnewZ.
To talk on EU's new Black Sea strategy, we're joined by Nika Chitadze, professor at the International Black Sea University, coming to us from Tbilisi. Welcome, thank you so much for being with us. Now, there are still no details on the location or time frame on establishing the maritime security hub the strategy envisions, but it's meant to monitor infrastructure such as submarine cables and offshore installations. EU's foreign policy chief Kaja Kallas also suggested the center could monitor any eventual ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. What do you make of the security aspects of this strategy?
Good evening. Thank you very much for the invitation. I would like to mention that it's, of course, should be mentioned as a fact that European Union now started or continued by this way to determinations a new geopolitical, geostrategic and geoeconomic strategy towards a Black Sea region, which means by this way development cooperation not only with literal 6 states, but with all countries from the wide Black Sea area. Yes, and including by this way the field of security, because as we know that European Union is becoming more and more important actor and geopolitical player in the field of defense and security. We know here that European Union, by this way, is going to release about $800 billion for the creation of the EU defense fund, by this way, which means at the same time, by this way, to the determination the EU interest in the Black Sea region. Where by this way still, you know that the Russian aggression is continuing by this way, and accordingly some maritime security issues based on the international convention based on the international maritime law, which was adopted in 1982, should be by this way protected. Furthermore, as you know, that European Union wants to implement different infrastructure projects in the Black Sea region. One of them is interrelated with the construction of the electricity cable on the bottom of the Black Sea, and where by this way transportation will be held from Azerbaijan through the territory of Georgia by the Black Sea towards Romania, Bulgaria and other EU member states. The length of this cable is 1,195 kilometers. And for the implementation of such a project, of course, European Union needs a security environment in one of the hottest in the world, hottest region, Black Sea region. First of all, not because of the war between Russian Federation and Ukraine, but at the same time, EU partly also wants to replace NATO in the field of defense and security, but we should not forget the 23 EU member states. At the same time, they are members of the North Atlantic Alliance.
Well, you've mentioned one of the projects, the Black Sea cable that would transport green energy from South Caucasus to Europe. This new EU policy also has priorities, mine clearance, protection of commercial shipping routes. The EU plans to deepen its ties with Georgia, Azerbaijan, Turkey, Armenia, but also Ukraine and Moldova by enhancing regional connectivity. How much of this strategy is about connectivity?
It's of course should be welcome. Such a type of intention from the EU side, because EU, is one of the most active economic player, GDP of 27 EU members countries together. By this way, it's about 20 trillion US dollars, and we know by this way about EU geopolitical, geoeconomic, and geostrategic interest in the Black Sea region. Very much, in my point of view, it is dependent on the oil and gas reserves, which are located in the Black Sea, in the Caspian Sea region, and we know how the Azerbaijan, by this way, was and is and will be, of course, one of the main reliable energy supplier for on the EU market. I mean here by the way, of course, the Trans-Anatolian gas pipeline project and the TAP project, Trans-Adriatic gas pipeline project. It's very important, by this way, to discuss about this connectivity, yes, from the energy, not only, but or including, or first of all, from the energy point of view. It's from one side. From the other side, we know here that during the different political crises in the region, EU, by this way, yes, always implemented some additional steps for let's say, development cooperation. We know after the Russian military aggression against Georgia in 2008, 1 year later, EU established and founded Eastern Partnership Program, which of course was connected integrated with the connectivity with the Black Sea region countries, and 6 countries on the post-COVID space. They become the member of the EU neighborhood policy. And today, in my point of view, the new initiative will be included, will be presented before the international society when EU is discussing about the development of cooperation with Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Moldova, and Ukraine. So some Eastern Partnership Program, which means, by the way, the development of free trade between EU and countries from the Black Sea region.
Indeed, Nika, thank you so much for joining us. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for now. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights.
Thank you.
14 members of an alleged Armenian fraud ring have been arrested in Los Angeles under suspicion of stealing $30 million in COVID relief and small business loans. According to U.S. prosecutors, out of 18 defendants named in the criminal complaints, 4 are believed to be in Armenia.
The exclusive Fox News report revealed that an Armenian crime ring stole $30 million in COVID relief and small business loans intended to help American taxpayers. Federal agents have arrested 14 suspects in connection with the scheme. 13 of them are Armenian-born, and at least one is expected to face deportation. One of the key figures is believed to be William McGrayan, who investigators say led the operation. He's accused of using fake tax and bank documents to create shell companies, applying for $47 million in federal funds and securing around $30 million. Court documents describe McGrayan as unstable, with alleged ties to Armenian gangs. An informant told authorities he once threatened someone with a gun and a baseball bat. Investigators say McGrayan helped funnel stolen money into luxury purchases and overseas transfers, making it harder to trace. The suspects were taken to a secure processing center after the raids. Agents seized $20,000 in cash, money counting machines, cell phones, laptops, and 2 loaded 9mm handguns with boxes of ammunition. This marks the second week in a row that Homeland Security has carried out early morning raids in Los Angeles, targeting transnational crime networks. The suspects now face charges including conspiracy, fraud, and money laundering.
Uzbekistan and Italy have signed a joint declaration on strategic partnership following a meeting of Uzbekistani President Shavkat Mirziyoyev and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni in Samarkand. The two sides also signed deals on labor migration, critical raw materials cooperation, and academic partnerships.
During high-level discussions held in Samarkand, the President of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Mirziyoyev, and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni adopted a joint declaration that formally established a strategic partnership between the two countries. A formal ceremony was held in the presence of both leaders, where a series of newly signed bilateral agreements were exchanged. These accords span a wide range of areas, including the promotion and mutual protection of investments, cooperation in the field of critical raw materials, and joint efforts on migration and mobility. The country is also committed to a deeper partnership in sustainable development, environmental protection, and the preservation of cultural heritage. Notable agreements were signed to enhance collaboration with the Italian Climate Fund and the Italian Confederation of Agriculture. Key green development initiatives were also launched in partnership with prominent Italian companies, including Sogesid and Ansalado. These efforts are expected to contribute to both nations' long-term environmental environmental and industrial goals. Beyond governmental cooperation, the visit featured the execution of a number of significant partnership instruments. This includes collaborative frameworks with the National Research Center of Italy, strategic industrial alliances with companies such as Siemens and Danieli, and an academic memorandum of understanding with the University of Perugia. Together, these extensive agreements underscore a shared commitment to strengthening bilateral ties across economic, environmental, academic, and technological domains. Recent data also highlights the success of ongoing economic collaboration. Bilateral trade between Uzbekistan and Italy has nearly tripled in recent years, propelled by a broader scope of commerce and strengthened economic ties.
Well, that's all we have for you for now. Thank you so much for watching and stay tuned to AnewZ.